We've been collecting, trading and battling Pokemon for well over 2 decades, and if it hasn't gotten old by this point, perhaps it never will. However, even though there aren't a whole ton of major changes between each entry in the Pokemon series, there are some adventures that are better than others, and some that are worse. We're looking at each of the main series Pokemon entries and ranking them to see how they stack up amongst each other. No remakes or side games, just the 8 main games, with both the original Unova games and their sequels counted as a single entry. I'll be giving my condensed thoughts on these games as they come up, but I have done in-depth reviews of each individual generation. If you want to check those out afterwards, there'll be a link in the description. So with all that said, let's go. Oh wait, that game isn't included. What I meant to say was, let's begin. The most recent games, Pokemon Sword and Shield, have a lot of cool new ideas. Max raid battles bring Pokemon trainers together in a way that no prior game has come close to. The wild area, while perhaps not as exciting as it looked like in the game's advertising, provides a nice change of pace from the usual town hopping and gym battling. Speaking of gym battling, Sword and Shield has what I believe to be the best and most refreshing gyms to date. Unfortunately, Sword and Shield dropped the Pokeball in a lot of areas, the most disappointing of which has got to be the story, which fizzles out around the 4th gym as if the writers stopped writing beyond that point. Then there are the many regressions, like the poor online infrastructure, and of course the sudden disappearance of half the Pokemon. Thankfully, the upcoming DLC looks to improve on some of the game's issues, but that remains to be seen. As it stands right now, Sword and Shield are the worst Pokemon games. Although, the worst isn't the best way to put it. Perhaps the least good is a better phrasing, as I still had fun with these games. They're not bad, just the worst of what the series has to offer. The original Pokemon games saw a 10-year-old boy embark on a grand journey, travelling through tall towns and treacherous terrain, fighting scary foes, winning gym badges, and becoming the champion of the world. Oh, and catching lots of Pokemon, of course. The games that started it all are beloved by many, and it's not just a nostalgia thing. It's not the impressive feat that games of this magnitude can even exist on the Game Boy. It's simply the fact that Pokemon Red, Green, Blue and Yellow remain great games to this day. They even managed to do some things better than their many sequels, such as the more open structure of its world. So if these games are so great, why are they number 7 on the list? Well, the Generation 1 games are pretty broken to a hilarious degree, both in terms of strange design choices and actual glitches that clearly make this the worst implementation of its battle system. Having said that, battles are still fun in these games. It's still Pokemon in every way. It's commendable how well Game Freak pulled off their vision on the first try. Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald are solid Pokemon games. That's about it. Honestly, they don't do a whole lot to stick out from the rest, but they are great games. The Generation 3 games began the Pokemon world anew, with things like the new standardization of the berry system and different kinds of Pokeballs. It also brought with it staple features like Pokemon abilities and natures. Unfortunately, as these games were a new starting point for Pokemon, they lacked any connectivity with the previous games, something I've always enjoyed about most other Pokemon games. There are a couple things that make the 3rd gen games stand out. The Pokemon contests are perhaps the best side activity in Pokemon games, and quite meaty at that, requiring trainers to raise their Pokemon in different ways to impress the judges. Then there's Pokemon Emerald's Battle Frontier, containing a whole host of different battle competitions with different rule sets. These are cool modes, but they never did a whole lot for me personally. Overall, the story, world and gameplay of these games are good. They just don't do enough to interest me quite as much as the games higher up on this list. The Generation 5 Pokemon games are fascinating. When Black and White released in Europe in 2011, they did little to capture my interest. Even after playing them for the first time years later, they still didn't do much for me. For a while, I considered them the worst Pokemon games. Perhaps it was the abandonment of all non-Gen 5 Pokemon within the story, or the fact that these games didn't stand out much having released on the same system as their predecessor. But as time passed, the more I look back on these games, the more fondly I felt about them. In fact, Pokemon Black and White contain my favourite story and some of my favourite characters. Team Plasma brings something new to the table in terms of an evil team. Also, Black and White perfectly weave together the evil team plot with the gym challenge plot. Gym leaders are no longer statues and serve an active role in the story. Then there's the music, an outstanding aspect of the Gen 5 games. I don't think limiting the available Pokemon throughout the story did Black and White any favours. This and the rather lackluster post-game dragged down the overall quality of Black and White. The sequels did help out in this regard, but dropped the ball in the areas in which the original excelled, namely the story and characters. Despite these shortcomings, the Gen 5 games as a whole are still great, definitely worth a play if you skipped over them. The Gen 7 games remind me a lot of the Gen 5 games. Sun and Moon arrived late in the 3DS library, and so the battles looked and felt similarly to the previous generation. However, Sun and Moon did greatly improve the visuals outside of battle, with the human models in particular, making these some of the absolute best looking games on the system. Also, like the Gen 5 games, these ones have a very strong story, and quite a strange story, introducing us to the weird and wonderful Ultra Beasts. Not only that, but Sun and Moon dared to be different, ditching the traditional gym battles for the island trials. They were a fun change of pace that felt quite at home in the happy-go-lucky region of Alola, a region brought to life by wonderful characters. Unlike Gen 5, however, Gen 7 didn't shoo away the creatures that we've grown to love. In fact, it gave us some new wacky versions of some old Pokemon that sported new types and some funky designs. Plus, these games gave us Team Skull, and I won't hear anyone grade them less than fantastic. Pokemon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum may appear iterative on the surface, but in many ways they are very innovative. These DS games saw the first integration of Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Battling and trading with friends online was all well and good, but the global trade system was definitely my favourite online feature. The Gen 4 games also brought with them a monumental shake-up to the battle system in the form of the physical attack and special attack split. Of course, all these things were brought forward to future games, and you can't go online in Diamond, Pearl or Platinum anymore. So what can these games offer to someone playing them today? How about some truly exciting locations such as the Spear Pillar, the routes leading to Snowpoint City, the many lakes and the Distortion World in Platinum? Sinnoh has a lovely atmosphere thanks to the cold climate and its implementation of the day-night cycle, with different versions of music tracks playing at different times of day. The Gen 4 games are heaps of fun to fill the Pokédex in, which is a huge positive for me and I'm sure many others. There are tons of different methods to obtain in Pokemon, such as the Poké-Radar, Dongle method, the different evolution methods for all the new evolutions. It takes hundreds of hours to get a complete dex, and it is satisfying throughout. Oh, just make sure to only play Platinum, not Diamond and Pearl, as those two games are slow as hell. Yeah, stick to Platinum. Pokemon X and Y. I think I was the most excited I've ever been for a Pokemon launch with X and Y, and they did not disappoint. Mostly. Okay, I'll be honest, the story of these games in the Kalos region were never my favourite, and these are of course important elements in any Pokemon game, but these weak areas did not detract enough from the overwhelmingly positive areas to make these games any less than my second favourite Pokemon games. The battles looked phenomenal in 3D. The team did an excellent job translating the Pokemon sprites into cel-shaded 3D models in a way that made them just pop. It couldn't have been an easy task creating models for 721 Pokemon, but the team weren't shy of showing off how amazing of a job they could do. In fact, 457 of them were available in X and Y from the start, and any of the ones that weren't could be transferred in from previous games. Even if you didn't transfer them in, the selection of Pokemon up for grabs during the story was enormous. Thanks to the changes made to the EXP share, it doesn't take long to level out your Pokemon's levels, marking the first time where rotating your party for any Pokemon at any time was practically viable. Being able to vary up my team throughout the whole game was a blast, not to mention knocking out large chunks of the Pokédex as I went. The sheer amount of Pokemon along each route, the excellent integration of social online features, the low stress nature of the difficulty, and a lot of the characters make Pokemon X and Y a cozy experience. The sequels to the originals left no stone unturned when it came to improvements, and as a result, they're better in pretty much every way. It's amazing what some colour and a bit of artistic tweaking can do to the look of something. Not only are the visuals a step up, but they even managed to create a soundtrack that even trumps the incredible soundtrack of the original. Having said that, both the visuals and music hold up today. Of course, you have to have an eye for the retro aesthetic, and these are some great looking 8-bit games with some of the finest chiptune music ever produced. For me, this is still the golden standard for Pokemon music. If you don't care about that retro hokey pokey and just want to play a good Pokemon game, this is it. Johto is a superb region with great places to explore, such as the different towers, the Dragon's Den, the Lake of Rage, the Ruins of Alph, and more. It's good enough by itself, but the Gen 2 game's secret sauce, and a massive reason for why it's the best Pokemon game. You can go back to Kanto. That's right, 2 Pokemon regions in one game. But it's not the same Kanto from 3 years ago. A lot has changed, and you can see it with your own eyes. There's more Pokemon to catch, 8 more gym leaders to defeat, and one final challenge at the end of it that is one of the best moments in all of Pokemon. That challenge is a reward in and of itself. On top of this, there are the experimental features like the Pokegear, berries, held items, breeding, the different balls. A lot of these features stuck because they were so well implemented. And those that didn't stick, well, they make Gold, Silver and Crystal feel like Gold, Silver and Crystal. and I wouldn't trade them for a shiny Ho-Oh. Well, those are my top 8 Pokemon games. Be sure to let me know your order in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and if you want to see more of me, you can follow me over on Twitch and Twitter, or check out my full reviews for each of the Pokemon games, link in description. But in the meantime, have fun playing video games.